In a stunning reversal, the U.S. State Department has frozen $221 million given by the Obama administration to the Palestinian Authority on President Obama's last day in office. The funds had previously been budgeted to the Palestinian Authority but blocked by Congress. Obama released the funds just hours before Donald Trump was sworn in as president. Officials at the State Department decided to freeze the transfer until President Trump's Secretary of State takes office.
The House has passed legislation to ban the use of federal money for nearly all abortions. The measure would also block tax credits for some who are buying abortion coverage under Obamacare. Republicans passed a similar bill in 2015, but President Obama threatened to veto the legislation. GOP lawmakers say the bill has a better chance under President Trump, but it needs to go through the Senate first, where it could face considerable opposition from Democrats.
Waves of anti-Trump marchers rolled through hundreds of towns and cities coast to coast with one clear message.
We have our rights, and we're sticking up for them.
We're here to fight, so don't take back our rights.
This was Boston, where tens of thousands flooded to hear Senator Elizabeth Warren lead the charge.
And we believe that sexism, racism, homophobia, and bigotry have no place in this country. This is what we will fight for. This is what we will march for. Are you ready to fight?
In Chicago, crowds mushroomed to more than 150,000 people, forcing organizers to shut down the official march. Protesters carried on, streaming over bridges and into downtown Grant Park. From Austin to New York and LA, they called out for women's rights, immigrant rights, and the power of inclusion. In Atlanta, more than 10,000 protesters marched almost 2 miles from the National Center for Civil and Human Rights to the State House. They were led by Congressman John Lewis, a civil rights icon. He has called Trump's presidency illegitimate because of Russian hacking and interference in the election.
We have a moral obligation to fight, so never, ever lose hope.
This week, President Trump has started to fulfill popular promises, and today he will act on a campaign staple.
We will build a great, great wall.
Financing for the U.S.-Mexico border wall remains an unresolved question. Federal law since 2006 authorizes construction of a physical barrier, but Congress has never funded it. Another priority this week?
I call it extreme vetting, right? Extreme vetting.
Limiting refugee immigration from countries with a high rate of terrorism. Details on methods and timing are still developing.
When it comes to taking on President Trump's immigration policy, California has drawn a line in the sand.
In California, immigrants are an integral part of who we are and what we become.
Governor Jerry Brown's message this week was blunt.
Let me be clear. We will defend everybody, every man, woman, and child who's come here for a better life and has contributed to the well-being of our state.
California has 18 sanctuary cities. Even if it threatens federal funding in Los Angeles, you stand to get up to $500 million this year.
These are dollars that protect our port, our airport, keep homeless veterans off the streets.
You're saying pulling funding from LA could actually hurt the rest of the country.
This is what it looks like when, in the rare event the United States votes in a populist president, and that president begins the uphill battle of mending the fabric of the U.S. Constitution, torn apart by puppets installed by an embedded foreign globalist system.
Would you ever have Donald Trump on your show?
No.
What if he asked you?
No.
What about Melania? Would you have her on your show?
Melania? What, to talk about what? She can barely speak English.
Of course, the brainwashing, social engineering media minions have their claws so deeply dug into the psychological soil of the nation that the legalized propaganda quietly enacted in 2013 under President Obama will not stop. No matter how diligently, the Trump administration refutes the lamestream media's alternative facts.
You know, I have a running war with the media. They are among the most dishonest human beings on earth. And they sort of made it sound like I had a feud with the intelligence community. And I just want to let you know, the reason you're number one stop, it is exactly the opposite. Exactly. And they understand that too.
Think how dumb they think you are. To show the gates when they open at 8:30 and people just start pouring in, because they don't want to show nobody, because people know that would be a lie. So you see them all pouring in. They don't show you hours later when it's the biggest crowd ever.
CNN actually put out this gigapixel photograph of the inauguration. They debunk themselves on that crowd size. You can go to it and see how huge the crowd was.
Or they say, yeah, he took out the Martin Luther King bus, and the whole media runs with it. And it's just ongoing.
We had a tweet go out about Martin Luther King. Think about how racially charged that is. And someone rushes out and says to the entire press corps that the President of the United States has removed the bust from his office. Think about what the signal, hold on, please.
And apologize.
No, he actually applies to, quote, my colleagues. That's the exact quote. Okay? That quote, that report got tweeted out around. And to report, where was the apology to the President of the United States? Where was the apology to millions of people who read that and thought how racially insensitive that was?
But the first time he confronts the public, it's a falsehood?
Chuck, if we're going to keep referring to our press secretary in those types of terms, I think that we're going to have to rethink our relationship here. But look what happened the day before, talking about falsehoods. We allow the press in, and what happens almost immediately? A falsehood is told about removing the bust of Martin Luther King Jr. from the Oval Office. That's just flat out false.
If it wasn't obvious before, it has to be now. Any rational American can plainly see President Donald J. Trump has hit the ground running into his first 100 days and already has a 57% approval rating according to Rasmussen polls, compared to the king of the snowflakes and the fascist and racist left's Barack Obama, who after 8 years of unyieldingly wounding the republic had an average approval rating of 47.9%, according to a Gallup poll.
We have to accept that there is prejudice that exists within our own party, and we have to be able to have that conversation. And my job is to shut other white people down when they want to interrupt. My job is to shut other white people down when they want to say, oh no, I'm not prejudiced. I'm a Democrat. I'm accepting. My job is to make sure that they get that they have privilege, and until we shut our mouths and we listen to those people who don't, and we lift our people up so that we all have equity in this country.
As CNS News reports, that puts him behind Richard Nixon, who resigned, and George W. Bush, who saw his approval rating drop as low as 25% near the end of his term. When the history books are written, the only change former President Barack Obama brought was a growth of the awareness to the bulk of the American people that the system and the talking heads protecting that system are far more corrupt and desperate than we initially realized.